Hello, folks. Live once again. We're back in the boxing chit kingdom. At least that's what I'm saying for the time being. But anyway,
Mhm.
all is good here. Josh here, along with Boz, holding it down over on the east side. How's it going there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm kind of, still recovering. I had this kind of throat infection, but it's getting better. I mean, I feel all right now. It's just that my throat is still a little sore. So, yeah.
Okay, good to go. Well, well wishes, of course. We'll keep this
Thanks.
fairly
Mhm.
short and sweet, which is certainly can be a misnomer in terms of whenever we designate something as short and sweet, it tends to go a little bit further than expected. But we'll give it a shot today to actually try and keep it short and sweet. But
Yeah.
appreciate you being
Well,
here for sure. We're kicking
yeah.
off 2023, our first big action of 2023, a major card. I guess it's worth note there was a card in Japan. Neither of us was able to catch it.
Mhm.
A minimum weight title fight. So be sure to look that up if you're interested in learning about some of the minimum weight stuff. But of course, we are here, as you know, to check out the or to speak of the Gervonta Tank Davis fight against Hector Garcia at 135 pounds. This was for the WBA World Lightweight Championship, and it was taking place in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Had a lot of fanfare behind it. They had a decent crowd that was out there. Actually, not just decent, it was a very good crowd in attendance. They had recorded around 19,000 plus. At least that is what was being presented on the broadcast. So
Mhm.
we were treated to a good action night in terms of just the overall activity in Washington D.C. As many of you know by now, the outcome was Gervonta Tank Davis picking up a stoppage victory in the ninth round. It was a TKO after Hector Garcia was unable to continue retiring on his stool. He had an issue with
Yeah.
his vision, and I think he was just a bit rocked as well. So it was a typical showing from Gervonta Davis as far as a slow build to ultimately landing something huge that ended up changing the dynamic of the fight and sending Hector Garcia home early. What were your
Mm.
thoughts on how that played out there, Boz?
Yes, I was able to see the highlights, and it looked like Garcia was doing all right at first, and I mean for a quite long time. Sonny, yeah. But then, yeah, he got hit with some big shots, of course, and when you get hit like that by a tank, it's just it's out, it's over usually. So I didn't quite see the stoppage because they didn't make that video so well when it comes to that. But anyway, I kind of understood that it was a corner, yeah, stoppage. So it was a
Yeah,
good one, I guess. I didn't quite get all the details when how much the damage or what kind of the damage Garcia suffered, but he put on a good performance. Yeah, all in all, so he's got nothing to be sorry about or ashamed
yeah.
about.
I think the writing was pretty much on the wall. Garcia, he didn't have the type of power to
Yeah,
truly hurt or back
that
up
was.
Devontae Tank Davis in a way that was going to alter Davis coming forward and looking for those huge shots that he tends to land. And
Yeah, that was
so,
the big difference. The power
yeah,
was the main difference. Yeah.
yeah. Because a lot of Garcia's best work has come through accumulation, throwing a bunch of fast shots in
Yeah.
succession that don't necessarily have a ton of fire behind them, but they can still do
I mean,
residual damage.
I saw also the highlights of his fight against Castio. Is that how you pronounce it? Castio Clayton, and he kind of put him down. It looked like a really big, knockdown, a big shot, but Clayton just got up and finished the fight. So that proves that Garcia is not a big puncher. Really, he just kind of happened to catch him really well. Mm.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. And real quick, shout out to Fight Night Scores. It says evening, both sunny there, Boz. Is it sunny where you at there, Boz?
Not at all. It's dark already.
You're getting a lot of snow, as I understand it, right? So,
Yeah, but now it's been raining since yesterday. Oh, it's terrible to walk
yeah,
outside.
always makes for a pretty hectic mix there. But certainly, shout out Fight Night Scores. Appreciate you dropping by. For those listening, those watching, those who want to get more in depth on the actual sport of boxing and actually score, check out fight-score.com, the most comprehensive scoring system that is out there for the sport of boxing, where you can actually see real detail behind the scores that are actually put in place. So be sure to check that out, fight-score.com. Gonna drop it in the chat as well, fight-score.com. I think you'll enjoy it. Sign up for an account, and when we just left a stream, as a matter of fact, if you check your page on there, we're just live viewing and scoring the actual Fernando Vargas versus Winky Wright fight from '99, taking it back. So join into the mix. Your scores can be a part of the mix as well. So be sure to check that out. Salute to Rodolfo Rivera Jr. It says, "What up, Boz in '86 or '86 in box?" I get what you're saying there, though, Rodolfo.
Box man.
Salute for sure. Salute.
Salute.
Random Acoustic Thoughts. Hey, welcome, Random Acoustic Thoughts. Thanks for dropping in, buddy. Be sure to check out Random Acoustic Thoughts if you want to get in the mix on some of the historic stuff. We have a lot of great conversations we've had. There are a number of other great conversations we've had with some others like Boxing Librarian, Scrapbook Boxing, on the history of the sport. Sam Langford. You want to learn about Sam Langford, the greatest fighter of all time? Go check out Random Acoustic Thoughts. I think it will be a treat without a doubt. So salute Random. Then we have Big Fish Vega in the building. Be sure to check out Big Fish Vega. He's always on Fight Night Scores as well as we're scoring. It's always a great time, providing great insight. Big Fish Vega, he puts his money where his mouth is. He's going to be stepping in the ring here at some point, I'd imagine. I remember mention of such, so definitely let us know, Big Fish. But he says Vaz is in Brick City. Yes,
Brick City, yeah, baby.
Yes. Wanted to switch things up today, so good stuff there.
Red Brick.
Here's Josh. Fight-score.com, as I mentioned. Also, the YouTube is there in the chat. Be sure to check them out. Be sure to follow. And then from a Facebook user sent a hello as well. So appreciate you dropping by with your comment. Of course, we're here to discuss the 2023 action. Of course, we just got here to 2023, so there isn't a ton of stuff that has taken place thus far, but we did have the Gervonta Davis versus Hector Garcia fight last night. That's what we were just jumping into the mix with. Gervonta winning a 9th round TKO stoppage over Hector Garcia. So, excuse me. I guess the natural question that comes about is what's next for the two fighters. And as we know, there seemingly is an April date, April 17th specifically, that has been thrown out there for Gervonta Davis to take on another Garcia, this time Ryan King Rye Garcia, who is also a big name there in the sport. They've been in the same weight class. And Ryan Garcia fought at 140 in his last fight. But that being said, Tank Davis has also fought at 140. This one is anticipated to take place at 135, and it's a matchup that we've been seeking out for the last few years, and it looks like it's finally going to happen. And unlike Crawford versus Spence, these two fighters are still in their 20s, and there's still a lot of good fight left in them as far as that's concerned. So I think that the timing is right. Let's make it happen, and it seems to be something that is in store. So doesn't seem to be a huge blockade at this point. So hopefully we get it. What are your thoughts on that, Boz?
Yeah, of course, everybody wants to see that fight, no doubt. As I was saying previously, I do give Garcia a good chance in that fight. Of course, I don't know really who. I don't really think anybody is the clear favorite there anyway, because we've seen also Tank, especially against the Cruz, he kind of struggled there. I mean, in that fight, in the last half, especially. I actually watched that fight yesterday for the first time in its entirety. So yeah, that was a great fight. But I mean, I think everybody knows by now that Tank can get hit, and Garcia can hit very well. So that's all I'm gonna say. So of
Oh yeah.
course, Tank hits hard, of course himself, but I mean, I think many up till now kind of looked at him as kind of almost invincible, So a machine. So now they know that he is not actually invincible. He's just very good. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think Big Fish Vega made a good point with Tank. Sometimes the lead up to getting to that point of the big shot isn't there isn't a bunch of activity that takes place in some of those earlier rounds. He kind of figures his opponent out. He'll throw a few shots, pow out the jab, nothing with real authority, and look for
yeah,
those huge shots. So you won't see a ton of like back and forth action up to the point of the knockout actually happening. So that is something
yeah,
to certainly take into account. And given Garcia's length, it could play in his favor as far as Tank choosing to kind of wait and just kind of operate and trying to figure him out while being there on the outside where the length would seemingly be in Garcia's favor and in his strong suit.
yeah. I mean, against Rolly Romero, Tank hardly landed a punch before that knockout. To put it that way. I mean, yeah. So he's just got a very good timing and just a good, great puncher, of course, and
Yeah.
simply knows how to set up a knockout, of course, very well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
Yeah,
gonna that's gonna definitely rear its head in the fight. It's gonna be a matter of if and when that big shot lands. How does Garcia react to it? We saw him get
yeah,
hit by Luke Campbell pretty flush. He was able to get up from that, but of course, a Luke Campbell shot probably isn't gonna have the same type of veracity and force as a Tank Davis shot. So it could be a
no,
different story if it were the case that he let himself
yeah,
get caught that cleanly. And he's had some issues with his guard at times. But that being said, in his case, he can also throw some pretty solid shots that can get the job done as well. He has a little bit of pop behind his punches, and they come
mm,
from a lengthy, long angle, so he can hit you with some of the stuff you don't necessarily see coming at length. So that bodes well for him as well. And Tank's size,
yeah.
so it could be something low that kind of catches him coming up.
Yeah. At the same time, there is a big height difference between those two, and this
Yeah.
will be interesting to see how that will play out and what if it will play a role, in favoring Garcia. But yeah, I'm not so sure. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, indeed. Now, as for Hector Garcia, he still has a belt at 130 pounds. So it's going to be a question of whether he chooses to operate there, which I'd
Yeah,
imagine might be the case with him, even if he was considering making a move up to 135. I'd imagine
hmm,
he goes and operates down there because, of course, we know that at 135, it is Tank Davis, of course. It is Devin Haney, who would pose problems for
hmm,
Garcia as well if he was thinking titles. So I think that his best bet is probably going to defend that title at 130, which for the most part can be considered kind of wide open at this point now that Shakur Stevenson has moved up, and it's there for the taking for someone to step in. Some think it could be Emmanuel Navarrete. Some think it could be Oscar Valdez, who will just jump right back in the mix and pick up the titles he lost to, or titles or titles, whichever one it is, he lost to Shakur Stevenson. So Hector Garcia might as well go back down there, throw his name in the mix, and see if he can actually become a continuing major player there at 130 pounds.
Yeah, I think it would be wiser for him to go back to 130 because of the power. I mean the power factor that he's not a hard puncher, so he would
Yeah,
really have to work so hard to get a decision against the best guys. And I mean, it's not really certain, of course, that he would be able to
yeah,
defeat them. So, yeah, at
yeah.
130, he's got a better chance of succeeding.
Yeah, yeah, and that certainly always is a thing when you're a fighter moving up. How will your power carry? And of course, if you never had power, true like one punch power to begin with,
Mm,
then of course you're going to be in a situation where you're likely going to be going up against bigger punchers, and you're not going to have that type of pop that'll be able to really aggravate them in that sense. So you'll have to really rely on your boxing, your fundamentals, your IQ, and all of that stuff, and stay on your guard the entire time. So we'll see
mm,
how he does. Rodolfo Rivera Jr. says, yeah, Tank first sees what his opponent does first. Then in the second half of the fight, he lets his power punches go, either being on the back foot or on the attack, according to the opponent. Hey, great way of putting it there, Rodolfo. That
mm.
is how he tends to operate. And when he lets those punches go, we know that he can put you to sleep, put you in night. He needs that pillow Joshua Greer used to carry around as a fighter, because that seems to be more fitting for Tank and his opponents right there. Night. So that's what they tend to see. Rodolfo Rivera Jr. also says, yeah, Hector does his best work at 130 for sure. Yeah, I think so as well, Rodolfo, because I think he does a lot of his what would be his replacement for power is through accumulation, and that's what seemingly got Chris Colbert out of his vibe and sent him down and kind of delirious in a sense for the remainder of that contest when they were fighting. And I think that's where Hector is probably going to find his strong suit as he moves forward. So 130 is there for him. So we'll see how he does for
Yeah,
sure. Now,
yes, we will see.
Now, on this card, also in the co-main event, it featured a welterweight contest and a guy they considered the boogeyman of the welterweight division, Jaron Boots Ennis, taking on Karen Chukhadzhian. I think I got his name right. I could be
No,
wrong.
Chukhadzhian.
Chukhadzhian. Yeah, that's what it is. I had it right last night because they were saying it on the broadcast, but I messed it up right there. Karen Chukhadzhian. But anyway, Zeron Boots Ennis ended up winning a 12-round unanimous decision. I found out through the stream on Fight Night Scores earlier that he won all of the rounds on the cards. Now I know that he was pretty much he was pretty much dominating the fight for the most parts of it. I didn't think it was a complete shutout, but that being said, the judges see what they see, and there was a lack of activity from Karine.
Yeah, he was there just to survive, I guess.
But
So.
but as Big Fish Vega mentions, Ennis is the booger man of the welterweight division as opposed to the boogie man, because I'm sure he was excited to put on the show, co-main eventing on this take card, big event. You had 19 plus styles in there in attendance. Of course, you had a number of individuals viewing, and there's a lot of fanfare behind it. But of course, Karen came into this fight on the move, and that movement seemed to trouble Jaron Ennis, not from the standpoint that he wasn't able to do anything, because as we mentioned, he did dominate the fight holistically, but he had some moments where he was swinging wildly. He was unable to cut the fight off properly there in the first few rounds, and it took him kind of really slowing things down a good bit. He was able to finally find a way to get off some of his shots, and when he did land some stuff, it was pretty crisp, some big shots, and he had the more eye popping punches on Chukhadzhian. But that being said, it was certainly a good deal of work there for Ennis, who I know was probably expecting to get him out of there as much as the number of individuals on social media, boxing fans, both casual and those that with knowledge or who would be considered beyond casual, I guess you can say, they were expecting this to be a quick night. And I think Big Fish Vega might even point it out, even the betting gods, they were thinking that the Ukrainian fighter was going to be out of there by the third round, at minimum the third round. But hey, that shows you how plans can somewhat change, especially they seem to always change for the boogeyman when the boogeyman is expected to go out in stylistic fashion on the biggest showcase of their career. Never tends to work out for them in that fashion. What are your thoughts on
No. Well, I didn't see the fight. I mean, there were highlights, but they were very brief, so I cannot comment on that. But I think
Yeah,
that,
they were short of. Yeah, I think that was pretty accurate. They were short of any like major highlights for sure.
yeah, and it's simply, I don't know that he's gotten so much hype before he actually beat anybody, worth, something, to put it away. So that can also work against the fighter, sometimes when they are built up too early and they start thinking, yeah, I'm already, a complete fighter. I'm already the one of the best.
Yeah,
And then they just stop working on themselves, stop developing, as fighters. That's what happens sometimes. And
yeah, yeah.
all
Yeah,
they can underestimate their opponents because of that, So
yeah,
this is a guy, Chukhadzhian. Who is he? Nobody ever heard of him. I'm
mhm,
gonna knock him out in 3 rounds. So that's pretty much, I think, what Ennis thought before the fight that's gonna happen. But I
yeah,
actually looked up Chukhadzhian's record, and he seems to be a pretty good technical fighter, actually, with a good amateur background. Actually, yeah. So
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
not some bum, from Eastern Europe. So you know.
Yeah, I remember we were looking at him last week. We were talking about that. And, we were looking. We saw he had an older Ali Funika, Ryan Martin, and
Yeah,
then a bunch of other names that aren't big names, but a lot of them
no,
happened over in Germany and
yeah, he's based in
maybe
Germany,
Croatia or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but anyways,
Croatia.
he actually, was one of those guys who, hey, had pretty solid movement and
Yeah,
he was sure of that. If he was sure of
he's
anything, it was how to move in there. I would say that.
just not a puncher, not a really. He's a boxer. So.
Indeed. And Big Fish Vega mentions Erickson Lubin is a good example of having a hype or a star before they earning their stardom
Yeah,
at the less
absolutely.
level than Ennis. Indeed.
Mm,
Yeah, that is a good
mm.
example. I remember, watching Lubin, and yeah, I was behind him as well. I thought that coming into that fight with, I believe it was Jamal Charlo. It was either Jamal or Jamel, but I believe it was Jamal. But
Yeah, it
coming into
was
that fight,
Jamel. He
oh
got knocked
Jamel,
out. He knocked him out
okay,
in one
Jamel.
round. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so coming into that fight, I was thinking, you know what? NSA, he has the potential of winning this fight. He might make it some true trouble for Jamel. But of course, man, he had
Lubin.
a little rookie mistake in terms of how he chose to avoid one of those shots, and he played right into an uppercut that Jamel had said that they've been working on in camp. So that goes to show you, And Lubin, of
Yeah.
course, it took him a little bit of time to get back to where we thought, okay, yeah, he's a real player there at 154 again, and
Mm.
um, and I think that partially played into what we saw with him in terms of he took a ton of damage there against Sebastian Fundora, but he wanted to continue. He wanted to press forward. He had sort
Yeah.
of that view and look of that never die mentality, but it was a good stoppage, of course, because his face was in ruins and it was very dangerous.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, no winning against Fundora in a brawl, in a dog fight. I mean, and
Yeah,
yeah, I remember that Lubin was kind of. I remember watching some videos, some like how do you call it, sort of programs about him on Showtime or something like that, and I was like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? Like, what has he done? They're already building him up like he's the next Tommy Hearns or something.
Yeah. They
And
have a
that's
knack for doing
because
that.
he's a puncher, right? So usually they get a lot of hype, just like Ennis.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually the slick guys don't actually get so much hype, not before they actually achieve something, right?
Yeah, yeah, certainly that can be the case. Rodolfo Rivera Jr. said, "Yeah, I would say one more fight before Boots can even think of going against Spencer Bud." Agreed. Maybe a fight against Ugas or Durbin. Agree in
Yeah,
that regard. Be a matter of whether one of them wants to take it. Maybe Ugas, who I saw recently, was back in the mix, seemingly training, getting himself prepped for something. I guess if an offer comes down the pipe, and of course we know Thurman is very interested in taking on Errol Spence, which whether or not that happens is still up in the air. I know there was anticipation of Spence fighting here early this year, so we still need to see if that's actually going to take place. But yeah, in relation to Boots Ennis, I think another good thing that was pointed out by uh, Big Fish Vega in our last stream on the Fight Night Scores channel was that, of course, his natural competitor or his natural sort of mirror fighter is Virgil Ortiz. They're both around the same age. They're both on a similar trajectory as being viewed as the two next big things in welterweight or in the division that is to carry it forward to the future. And one good thing that was mentioned, which of course I think certainly holds true, is the resume of Virgil Ortiz compared to Jaron Ennis, because Virgil Ortiz, he has taken on some very, very solid opponents, including Antonio Orozco. I remember watching that fight. That was a great fight. I enjoyed that fight. And Orozco, he's a pretty solid guy at the time. He was coming up, but he was solid. Then I remember, or he might, yeah, if I'm not mixing, I know he was coming up in this fight. Yep. So he took on him. He's been in there with Maurice Hooker, for instance, another very solid fighter who could punch. He's been in there with um, Mean Machine, uh, Aegis Cavalier-Laskus, is that his name? Aegis or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, Kavaliauskas, yeah,
Cavalier-Laskus, but yeah, the Mean Machine, and we saw that Virgil Ortiz, he's passed all of those tests, and
yeah,
he seemingly,
with
when we think it
flying
was a step up for
colors.
him. Yeah, he's been on the same trajectory, and he has the better resume than Jaron Ennis, who has more fights in total. And of
Hmm.
course, Jaron Ennis, I think one of the things is, of course, he has that look. If you were kind of building a fighter and you just say, "Oh, just from off of looks alone, like, okay, I want that guy. I like the way he looks." He has that about him. And, they were
Yeah,
making Roy Jones comparisons and all that stuff, but
right,
certainly,
right.
the
Mm.
experience factor still is a thing because he hasn't gone a ton of rounds when you look at it overall in those 29 fights that he has, because he's been able to get a lot of his opponents out of there.
I think that's why Fundora, for instance, isn't getting the same kind of attention. He's just this very tall, skinny kid going
Yeah.
that way who looks funny. So I don't think many people are saying, "Oh, look at him, he's gonna be the next star." Like, even though
Yeah.
he's also been very impressive lately. So
Yeah, we'll have to have a chat with Big Fish Vega at some point because he's a huge fan of Sebastian Findora.
yeah, so am I actually.
but
Yeah, he
um, but
just
yeah,
looks like also like a rather modest guy. I mean, a nice guy to me. So yeah.
oh yeah. He's cool. He's cool. Yeah, I like Sebastian.
Same with Virgil Ortiz. Actually, he also looks kind of modest, and I don't know. I haven't actually followed that much. I mean, Ennis that much yet, but he's
Yeah,
young. He's only 25, I believe, still, but
yeah, somewhere
already
around
has
that, 24,
has 30
25.
fights. So that's a lot, a lot of fights for a 25-year-old. Yeah,
Big Fish Vega says I'm a registered Findora hater.
he's a hater actually.
Yeah. I just threw that
Yeah,
out there.
yeah. Well, then you should have. Yeah, maybe that makes you a hater of guys like Paul Williams, who are too tall for the division, right? Maybe that's why. I don't know if that's why you hate him, but I mean, what's
No,
there to hate?
Pandora is just an anomaly. He looks so weird in there seeing someone that tall fighting at
Yeah.
154 pounds, at least in the sport of boxing. I mean, yeah, he
So
just just a weird
he
look.
won't be at 154 forever, I guess.
Yeah, true. Hey, he has a frame it seems to go up to heavyweight, but of course
Yeah, just
size
have to
is
feel
yeah, he's not a big
it.
guy in that sense, but
He would
yeah,
have
he
to, yeah, eat a lot and just build up a lot
yeah,
of
and
muscle.
hit the gym and then start focusing on building up that strength and
Yeah.
maybe we can see him at heavyweight. You give Anthony Joshua a run for his money at some point.
Maybe his power will increase too. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Now, also on this card, a very good fight. I was mentioning it, Bods, on our last podcast, was Rashidi Ellis in a welterweight contest against
Yeah,
Roman Villa, or I don't know if I said his
yeah.
name, first name right.
Royman.
Ramon Villa,
Yeah,
yeah.
Royman, yeah.
And it was a clash of styles in terms of Speedy Rashidi being the boxer mover, not necessarily a big puncher, but he's very sharp, of course. And then Villa, who has a ton of
Hmm.
knockouts, and he's Colombian, I believe, and he had a
Yeah,
lot of
or
those Was that
says he was born in Venezuela, but he's
okay?
like, yeah, fights out of Colombia, I guess, for some
Okay,
reason.
cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, he has a ton of knockouts, and a lot of that took place over in Colombia. And it's
Yeah.
always a question of how's he gonna look when he actually gets to this stage or gets in there with a real opponent, as they say. And
Mm.
I had saw him against Boca Chica, and as I was mentioning in
Boca
one of
Chica.
the previous, Boca Chica, he's a little touted prospect, I guess you can say, coming up. And Boca Chica, man, he almost got knocked out. He was able to go the distance, but certainly it was a fight dominated by Villa, who's they mentioned came in out of shape. I can't remember if it was short notice or not, but it might have been short notice. And he wasn't in the best of shape, but you could see that he had some legit power because he had Boca Chica hanging on for dear life in those earlier rounds, and he was somehow able to make it there to the end. It was only an 8-round contest, but Villa switched up trainers to work on his conditioning a bit better. And coming into this fight with Rashidi Ellis, a lot of people I'm sure didn't know about Villa, and I'm sure he surprised many. But I had said before the fight, this could be the fight of the night. And don't sleep on Villa because of his power, because he seemed to have some legit power or legit pop, and he could carry it. And he was able
Mm.
to do so here. It was really he was getting thoroughly outboxed to the point where I was like, man, I pretty much may be very wrong about Villa in those first 6 or 7 rounds. I mean, Rashidi Ellis was working from the outside as he typically does, and everything he was landing with that exact sharpness. They say get your punches right there. You don't want to overextend yourself or anything of that nature. You just want to snap and pop with those punches. And he was landing in that fashion. It was a beautiful thing to see. And ultimately, he started to tire out on the back end of the fight. He ended up getting dropped twice. It could have been a third one. It was on a bad angle for the ref in some sense,
Mm.
but it could have been a third knockout in the final round. And Rashidi Ellis ended up losing on the cards. I believe it was 114, 112 for two of them in
Yeah,
favor of
majority
Villa.
decision.
Yep, and one viewed it as a draw. Now, we were talking about this on the stream earlier. It seemed that Rashidi Ellis had done enough of those or done enough winning in those earlier rounds, but there were some swing rounds there. You never know how the judges are going to see it. Of course, the more impactful shots came from Villa on the back end, or when he was landing stuff in general. You could tell he was the more powerful. And Rashidi Ellis was super sharp earlier. He was landing with snap and flash. But hey, you got to stay
Mm.
on at all times. And he seemed to tire gas a little bit. And next thing you know, he was down, and yeah, it looked like he was if he was barely made it out of that 12th round. He's lucky, I would say, in some sense, to even make it
He
out of that
stepped,
12th round standing. He showed
he
some heart though.
stepped on the gas too soon. That's what happens, when you start too aggressively, too fast. And I watched. I mean, from his record, I could see that Ellis is not a puncher either. Really.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's a fast guy. Right? Who is
yeah, right. He's not a puncher, but he's sharp. He can, and then
yeah,
he puts his
sharp.
punches together in a way that he lands them with enough effectiveness that you can see, okay, yeah, this guy is really doing his thing. They're sharp.
Hmm.
They have that little snap to them,
Yeah.
But
So that's
certainly
what
this is tougher though.
happens. Yeah, fight these guys from Latin American fighters. Usually, they really don't give up so easily. So they usually really come on strong in the later rounds. As far as because I've seen plenty of fights with them, and they really,
Yeah,
put on the pressure, and so yeah, obviously this guy Villa is a puncher, so he was able to get the job done and
yeah,
to get the decision. Um, Fair or not, I don't know. I can't tell because I haven't seen the whole fight. I only saw
yeah,
some of the action and the knockdowns. So it
yeah.
kind of
Well,
looked like,
some
yeah,
people
yeah,
think it's a robbery.
all right.
Many, I would say, think it's a robbery because of the work that Rashidi did early on. But I'm not
Yeah,
in the
well,
camp of saying it is a robbery because of the fact that there were some closer rounds
yeah.
there. The activity lied with Rashidi, but as mentioned, the impactful shots that you could see were more powerful came from Villa, though at some
Mm.
points they were in limited amounts.
I think the positive thing about the decision is that the judges actually favored, even though they didn't have to. I mean, nobody, of course, would have protested if they had given it to Ellis, right? But
Hmm.
they actually gave it to the foreign guy. So
Yeah,
that's good. That's a good sign that now the judging is maybe getting a little, less prejudiced in America now.
yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there have been so many scorecards, where the American fighter who didn't deserve to win, he got the win, and yeah, in the last few years. So yeah,
Yeah, so that last round was a 10-7 round, so that's 3 points in that final
yeah,
round. So that
oops,
taps to factor in almost 10-6 round if he'd have got that third knockdown. Uh,
yeah, that
realistically.
plays a big, of course, role in the
So yeah,
final outcome.
yeah. So if you look at it from that perspective, if there were like two or three of those rounds that were very close and some judges went the other way, that knockdown right there knocked off 3 points for sure.
Right? Yeah,
Interesting stuff. So we'll see
yeah,
what's in store. I think the mention was that there could potentially be a rematch between the two. Both of them seem game for a rematch, and I think a rematch would be great. I think that we'd see a more aggressive Villa in a rematch, and I think that will make it fairly exciting. And I think that Rashidi Ellis, he might switch it up a bit himself, and he'll stay sharp and on the move, but maybe he'll look to land some harder in I would say probably some harder shots to probably keep Villa more at bay and pace himself for the later rounds as well. Because
mm,
it's really just the later rounds where he seemed to drop off as well. So the conditioning would be a factor. So I wouldn't mind a
yeah.
rematch. And there's also mention of Villa potentially taking on Jaron Ennis, who's also a 147 pounder that will be out there and available. They just so happen to fight on this card, so that gives them time to work that out.
Yeah, it was a lesson, for Ellis simply, and so hopefully for him, he will learn from that lesson. Never just go get on, however you say it. Don't never open too fast, against fighters like that can
Yeah.
punch and are kind of durable, enough, and yeah, that's always dangerous, if you are not a puncher yourself, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Certainly, it's something to take note of. So I'm sure those watching will definitely do so. Now, also, oh, excuse me, sorry, folks. I don't know what
Didn't
that
get
was
enough
doing.
sleep.
Maybe not.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry, but yeah, on this card, additionally, we had a 168-pound contest between
Mm.
Demetrius Andrade and Demond Nicholson. Shout out to Demond Nicholson, who's from this area. And
Marvin Gaye
Demetrius,
lookalike.
oh yeah, 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 him from Marvin Gaye. Oh yeah, I gotta check in on that.
He
But
really
yeah,
looks a lot like him, man. You really, I can't believe it.
cool, cool. That is funny. But so Andre was making his return after a year and like 2 or 3 months or something. He had
Right.
surgery after the Quigley fight, which he dominated Quigley, got him out of there in 2 rounds. And then this was his first fight, of course, with a move up to 168 pounds. And Fight Night Score says that as the event went on to 1 a.m. That's nothing. Vaz, no, yeah, yeah. The fight, yeah, this card, yeah, the final fight was almost 2 a.m. when the Gervonta fight was over. Even though it was a four-fight main event that started at 9.
Wow.
I mean, they stretched that thing out
Oh
like
man.
one fight per hour, damn near. but yeah,
Yeah.
so it's funny stuff how that works out.
By the way, I
but
just found out that Marvin Gaye was actually from Washington D.C. So this is getting even more
yeah,
suspicious.
yeah, Marvin
Maybe,
Gaye, yeah, he's a DCer.
yeah, maybe Demond should take a DNA test. To
Yeah,
see
yeah,
if
well, yeah.
he's
We'll have to see what's up. We'll have to see what's
yeah.
up with that. But yeah. So yeah, Demond was in there with Andre, and Andre, yeah, was making his return as mentioned. First fight at 168 pounds, so he had a belt at 160. He seemed to, it was the WBO title. He seemed to not care to defend that. He was at one point expected to take on Janabek Alam Kanoli at
Oh yeah.
160. I know, and then I guess that he didn't want that fight. Then there was something with the mandatory going to purse bid or something of that nature, and that ultimately didn't happen. So this was his first return, and for the most part, he
Yeah.
dominated this fight against Nicholson, who didn't have a lot of activity in the contest. Andre was able to pick up 2 knockdowns, though there was some sloppiness surrounding this fight at varying points. So one
Yeah.
of them was a more definitive knockdown. The other one was looked like a slip. It would have been a first knockdown, and then there was a third one that he seemingly thought he had game, but he kind of pulled him down. And then there was a missed knockdown from Demond Nicholson as well, who landed some shots to the body of Andre, but it was ruled, I guess, a slip by the official. But overall, some sloppiness in the fight, but it was a dominant win for Demetrius Andrade. And of course, early on, he came out gunning and storming, and he was landing some very good stuff. And it looked like he was going to potentially get Nicholson out of there. But that being said, as it wore on,
Usually.
Andre kind of slowed down a bit, not from the point of him being gashed or anything of that nature. He just kind of slowed down the type of shots he
Yeah.
was throwing with
As
power
he
and all that.
usually does.
Yeah, yeah, I guess the typical in that sense or whatever. So given such, it ended up going the distance with Andre dominating even at some of those points, but he never pressed it in a way to get that knockout or anything of that nature. And of course, he won
Yeah.
the decision. I think he won pretty much every round on the scorecard. Yeah, yeah. If I recall correct, I think I do recall correct. Actually, he won all of the rounds on the scorecard. Now there were like maybe that one where Demond got the knockdown. Demond Nicholson got the knockdown, or seemingly had the knockdown. That was probably his best round, though his activity had lacked there. So it was a dominant victory for Andre. But of course, the question will be also, where does he go from here? This was his first showing at 168, so we'll still need to
Mm.
see that.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. That's a division that's rather stacked at the moment, and maybe we can. I can see a fight against someone like Plant in the future, or yeah, somebody like that.
Yeah, he said he wants the winner of Plant Benavidez, but then there's also, as there has always been, Jamal Charlo in mention of facing him, but it's a matter of whether that fight will be made. I mean, Andrade is now with the PBC banner, so it would seem that it would be easier to make that Charlo fight now. Not to mention, Charlo will have been out
Yeah,
for a year plus, and he doesn't seemingly have an opponent on the radar unless he wants to come back and go into some kind of tune-up fight, which you never know. You never know. But that being said,
yeah.
Andrade is there now, so hopefully that's the fight we can get.
I didn't know Charles was done at 160. So yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Charles.
Well, he's not done at 160. So
But
yeah, I
he is.
digress.
Yeah,
But
but
he
he
always
can
talks about
potentially fight at 168. That's what
yeah.
you
There was
say.
an interview that was out there of him. He met up with Demetrius Bivol somewhere. He was talking about fighting him.
Oh,
Interestingly enough, at 168.
that's a bad idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
too.
but he wants
That's
Bivol to come to 168 to fight him,
yeah.
which makes no sense for Bivol. So that fight doesn't even make sense. But they just happen to be in the same place at the same time, I guess, and it was a way to get something on camera. But that
When
being
I
said,
was,
he needs to
yeah,
fight first in general.
yeah, of course. But when I'm mentioning Plant, there was something interesting. I noticed that he was sitting ringside on the same spot. Actually, I would say twice for two Gervonta Davis fights against Isaac Cruz and Rolly Romero.
Oh yeah,
Caleb. So Caleb Plant is obviously a fan of Tank Davis.
yeah,
He was,
their wives were next to each other. As a matter of fact, but I think that's probably because
yeah,
Caleb
he
Plant.
was there with his wife both times.
Yeah, yeah, I think they know each other from that perspective because, of course, Plant he was working out of the Mayweather gym. He may still work
All
out of the
right,
Mayweather gym, and
all right.
I'd imagine it stems from that they all are know each other and all that stuff. Even
Mm.
Rolly, of course, he fights out of the Mayweather gym. Tate
All right.
doesn't necessarily fight out of the Mayweather gym, but of course he's with Mayweather Promotions and he's always
Yeah,
there.
he's a
He
little
fights
too
out of
big
the gym
now.
here in Baltimore, but yeah,
Yeah.
but there's that connection. I think all of them pretty much are connected in some way, know each other. So I'm sure
Well,
Rolly and Tank had crossed paths a number of times beforehand, but it was an in-house Mayweather Promotions type fight.
with Floyd, he's had a few how to say fallings out with his colleagues. The stuff with
Yeah,
him and 50 Cent was it when they were supposed to have a promotion
yeah,
company, but that didn't last long.
yeah. It didn't quite work out. Yeah, it was gonna be
Yeah,
SNS Promotions or something like this.
two large egos working together. It's never gonna work.
Yeah. That is funny, but yeah, it's interesting stuff. But yeah, Caleb Plant versus Jamal Charlo, that would be a good one as well. But he's taking
Oh
on
yeah,
Benavidez. So for Jamal Charlo, I guess at this point it's a matter of if he's gonna continue to fight at 160 pounds or if he's gonna actually move up to 168, where there's more names there now. It was the opposite at one point for 160, but I think that all of the major names from 160 have, for the most part, gravitated towards 168, unless, of course, he can get um, Triple G, who is certainly on the back end of his career, or the sort of
yeah,
stagnant, rising yet stagnant Jaime Munguia, who has a belt there as well. But if those fights can't be made, there really isn't
oh, yeah.
a ton there for him at 160 at this point to get him to where
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
a
he wants to
rather
be,
poor division.
where he views himself star wise.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that division is not exactly the best to be in if you want stardom right now. Anyway, you
Yeah,
want the big, yeah, big views and stuff, paid per
Yeah.
view, not least. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
sad,
yeah,
you
it's
know.
not. Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's no. The only name. Yeah, he had to get, like I mentioned, Triple G. There's still some name value there, though. I think that many people will feel that Triple G was a bit past it,
Oh
and of
yeah.
course the Canelo fight didn't help anything in terms of that. So, what
Mm.
sort of remains that were there? That okay, yeah, Triple G still has it, that kind of took it away. So I don't know if that one's even makes sense anymore outside of simply just trying to fight a name. But I would like to see the Jaime Munguia fight. But of course, I think it would make more sense in a setting that allows for them to take advantage of the Mexican fan base. Because if it's not the case there, then I think from a financial means, it doesn't make a ton of sense
Mm.
unless they can take advantage of that Mexican fan base. And I get the assumption
Yeah.
that Jamal Charlo isn't going to go to Mexico, so I would assume it had to be somewhere like Vegas, Arizona, or California, or
Yeah,
something like that.
no way he's going to Mexico. No way, man.
Yeah, I think
And
it would
I
make
don't
more
know.
money if it were in Mexico. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
of course. Yeah, I don't know where Mungia is from, but he's from maybe Guadalajara or something.
Yeah,
Well, anyway.
and Munguia has lost a bit of steam as far as what he had. That's why I feel like the money may be in Mexico as far as where the majority of his base is, because he's a big thing over there. He's a big deal over there as well.
Yeah,
So yeah,
of course he's gonna be like he's gotta have a much bigger following gonna have there than in America, and of course now Tijuana is Alex.
okay,
Yeah, I just don't know what's happening with his management. They are not too keen, seem not too keen on pushing him out there, to fight the very best. So I don't know
okay,
why they are
yeah,
doing that, right? But I
yeah,
hope this will change this year anyway.
yeah. Big Fish Vega mentions that Munguia's from Tijuana, so certainly
One,
I think taking that into account, if it's not going to be in Mexico, then California seems to be the most ideal spot for that fight. If you want to get your
hmm,
best bang for your buck, if you're Jamal Charlo taking on Jaime Munguia. But of course, and Big Fish Vega mentions his last fight was in Guadalajara and he fought Ballard in Tijuana. Okay, yep, Demetrius Ballard. And they had a decent showing for that fight. But yeah, but of course, this could just be well wishing because, as we know, Jaime Munguia's golden boy in
hmm,
PBC is where Jamal Charlo lies. And despite some
hmm.
sort of breakthroughs here and there, there's still always a question of can a fight be made between the two? And we know that they can to a certain degree, but if both fighters don't want it as much as they may proclaim, then of course that adds to the mix, and
Yeah.
it's probably one that we're not going to see.
I think probably Munguia wants it more than Charlo because he has more to win. From that
Yeah,
fight, from winning, of course, especially. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, Charlo has been already the champion twice, and still, I guess he's still.
yeah. I guess he still has one of the titles at least.
So he's got more to lose, and of course, in terms of rankings also and everything. So for Munguia, even if he didn't win that fight, I mean, it would bring him at least more money and stuff, like more exposure. But
Yeah,
yeah, he would be a dangerous opponent, definitely. I think Charlo knows that he would be too dangerous, probably.
yeah. He's a big, strong, young fighter. A little
Yeah.
bit younger than Charlo by
Mm.
probably about 5, 6 years now. And Charlo hasn't been very active, of course. Munguia has been active. We wanted to see him against a big name. But
Yeah,
that
he's
being
been.
said, yeah, Charlo certainly hasn't been active. So I don't know. Maybe he they try to redo that Suleski fight that was on the table
Oh yeah,
before he got hurt.
yeah. That's a shame because Zelensky is a very good choice because he's a good technician. Has enough pop. I mean, not a big puncher, but he does have some power. I mean, he's not totally feather fisted. So
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
have been a great test for Charlo.
yeah. Suleski is solid. He's a very
Yeah,
solid opponent without a doubt, and he will certainly be a good test for Charlo in that sense. But I think it'll just be a test. I would favor Charlo to get the victory, but who knows with the inactivity if that will affect him in any way. Shout out to my mom who says Happy Sunday, son and Bars. Appreciate you dropping in there, mother.
happy Sunday to Joshua Small.
Yeah, happy Sunday. But yeah, so that wraps up, excuse me, that card, which was the first card of, well, not the first card of the year, first major card, I guess you can say, of the year. As mentioned, there was another card in Japan that took place on the 6th, Valadares versus Shigeko or Shigoko, just Shigoka. I'm not sure. They're minimum weight fighters. There was a title on the line,
Right.
IBF World Minimum Weight Championship. But yeah, as mentioned, I haven't checked it out, and well, neither of us have checked it out. Uh, but yeah, we did mention particularly talking on this card of Brendan Lee, who also fought, who made his return to the ring,
Yeah, that was a
and
really good
I thought he looked pretty
performance.
good.
Yeah, even though I mean he was
His
obviously
opponent,
fighting a lower lower level fighter, but still,
yeah,
I like the way he kind of puts his punches together, and he's got good to and just he's got 20. I believe they said 23 KOs, or actually that was before this stoppage, maybe. Yeah, he was
yeah,
27-0 coming in, so now he's 28-0 with 24 KOs. So that's a really good percentage, of course. And I like, I think he's got some potential, but it's still too soon to see how
yeah.
well, how far he will go. So,
Yeah, I like him as well. As far as what I've seen, he's been a regular on Showbox, the New Generation. At times, that's where I first got wind of him. I like what he has to offer. I think he has a good
hmm,
mix of skill, pretty athletic, has some good, decent pop to him. Yeah, as
yeah,
I mentioned, this opponent here, I believe this was the Argentine opponent who.
yeah, he was. His name is Luke. Yeah, Luke.
Okay, yeah, he was just there to be hit all night, so that didn't. I mean,
Yeah, he
it was a
was.
showcase more so for Brendan in that sense.
Mm.
There's no real
Yeah, I
threat.
think Lee kind of looks more to me a volume puncher than a one punch or you know
Yeah,
kind of guy, but he that definitely has a good pop.
yeah.
Yeah,
Might be sort of like Teofimo Lopez, who, if he catches you right, he can get you out of there, of course.
yeah,
It has some decent athleticism and pop to him, but it's not necessarily a knockout guy per se, especially
yeah,
at the
not
high
like
level,
a, yeah, not a wrecking machine, like
Yeah.
Virgil Ortiz, for instance.
Yeah, Virgil Ortiz has shown that, yeah, he has freaking stones in those hands.
Yeah,
Baby hands of stones, I guess you can say,
yeah,
so far.
just thunder, those fists, thunder fists. We can call it also.
He just has that thudding, just natural, just like a natural guy. Like, hey, I hit hard naturally.
Yeah,
I was born like this.
yeah. Even I wouldn't have liked to get hit by him, even if it was just sparring.
Well, no. Imagine he walks around at 160 something,
Yeah, probably.
maybe a
He's
little
a
bit more.
pretty big welterweight, 5'10", and yeah,
Yeah, because he had that issue that once with a weight cut. So that tells me, yeah, he
right.
probably walks around, yeah, probably around 160, if not 170. But
All right,
um,
yeah. So he will probably finish at least at 160 in his career.
yeah, yeah, in all likelihood. So yeah, he was on there, and then interestingly enough, Lamont Peterson low key made a return to
Yeah,
boxing and was knocked out. It looked bad. I saw a little phone
that
video.
also in 4 rounds, I believe.
Yeah, against journeyman from African journeyman, I believe
Yeah,
is what it is. He was
total
like 16-16 at the time.
total unknown. Yo, that's terrible. Oh, man, I didn't
Yeah, I
know that.
saw a video. There's a little phone video I saw out there of Lamont Peterson going down, and man, I don't know. I guess it was financial. I don't know if it's financial reason or what. But yeah, he
That's sad.
was trying to make the comeback, and it looked bad in terms of what I saw. His punch resistance has to be completely gone because he was stumbling and stambling. Apparently, he was dropped twice. What I
Mm,
saw was just I believe the final knockdown for the stoppage, and yeah, it didn't look like Barry Hunter was
just
in his corner. So I don't know if this
yeah.
was. I don't know how serious of work and training he put into it. He was, but that being said, yeah,
Yeah,
not a good look.
he's just damaged goods. That's what he's, and he the way he retired was also bad.
Yeah,
He got a beating. It was against Lipinets, right?
yeah,
Was his
yes. He looked
last
like he did
fight.
in the Olympic nets. That's the way he looked as far as the way he was
Yeah,
stumbling after he got hit by this guy,
he
Okundo
just
or whatever his name is.
he got thrashed by Lipinets and then he retired. That was a good thing, but now he came back. That was a very bad decision, of course.
And this had to be like one of the first fights. So this wasn't even on a televised undercard or anything. There were barely any people there. This might have been like the first fight. His brother Anthony Peterson was supposed to fight on the same card.
All
Now
right.
I knew Anthony Peterson was supposed to fight. I didn't know Lamont was fighting. But that
Yeah,
being
he
said,
led
Anthony
a
Peterson pulled out of the fight, so he didn't fight.
right. I know that Anthony had a really big break from boxing. He was
Yeah,
away
he's
for a
been
long
very
time.
sporadic. He's been very sporadic
Yeah,
since that
when
loss
he lost,
to
yeah,
Brendan Rios.
yeah, that's the one. He lost to Brandon Rios. I know it was I've seen maybe that fight, but anyway, I know he was down, but it was stopped because of some sort of injury. Maybe I think.
Disqualification. He hit
All right. Yeah,
Brendan
I know
Rios
it
low
wasn't a
too
real
many times.
knockout. Yeah, yeah. All
Yeah, he
right.
ended up being a stoppage due to low blows. And since then, yeah, he hasn't fought very many times. And yeah,
That's
sometimes you think that he's done completely, but he'll pop up every how many every years, and he has a fight. He was about to have this one, but I don't know if he's officially
right.
done yet. Even with this, so we may see him in there again. Well,
But Lamont,
some
I think he's the reason why he has really, I mean, totally washed up is that he's had quite a lot of tough fights. He with Victor Ortiz and Amir Khan, and he
oh yeah,
got smashed by Lucas Matisse. Also, let's not forget that. But he just because he somehow got to keep his title anyway, he continued. He continued as a champion for a while after that, but then he just suddenly totally declined. As you know already.
yeah, certainly. So yeah, yeah, that was the thing. So yeah, I was looking at Anthony Peterson. He's 39 1-1. It's crazy that how much time has passed, but that Rios fight was in 2010.
Yeah, it was. I
2010.
remember.
That's insane.
Yeah, it
And
was
of course,
before
Rios is no
Rios.
longer fighting.
Yeah, it was before Rios became a champion. I know.
So yeah, and so Peterson has had 11 fights since 2010. Do the math.
Mm, you're right.
We're in 2023. So
Mm,
we've had some
weird.
long breaks in the midst there for sure.
Yeah. He doesn't seem too keen. He wasn't too keen to fight anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know he trains some fighters, or at least not just fighters, but even some people who aren't fighters. I know he does that type stuff. So guess that keeps him busy and in shape. But yeah, interesting
Mm,
stuff. Yeah. Outside of that, of course, that was the big
mm.
thing. Really quickly, I guess we can mention next week Efe Ajagba is going to be taking on Stephen Shaw
That's
in what
right.
should be an interesting fight at
Yes,
heavyweight. Do you have any
by all
thoughts surrounding
means.
that?
Yeah, I think it will be like to show just how you know how damaged Ajagba is from the Frank Sanchez fight. If he will be able to impress in that fight, if he does, then it will just show that it was a temporary setback. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's
That's what I was thinking as well. There's like a 50-50 fight. We're gonna see if Jagba is uh where he is since that fight, and we're gonna see if Stephen Shaw can employ some of the similar tactics to Frank Sanchez to show that hey, while Jagba may be this big puncher, he can be outboxed. So we'll see if that
yeah.
happens.
He's just a big, slow. He's slow, I guess. So he's a big guy, big puncher who wins by just overpowering his opponents. But when
Yeah.
he faces a he loses. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The seemingly co-main is going to be Adam Lopez against Abraham Nova in what should be a pretty good fight right there. This will be Nova making his return since that loss to Robisi Ramirez, where he was stopped.
yeah, I've heard of him, but not so much Adam Lopez before. Yeah,
Adam Lopez, he's been one of those fighters who has a potential of upsetting the apple cart. You'll let me tell you who he's. I'm trying to
mm,
remember who some of the fighters he's been in. He's been in with some pretty solid competition. Let me see here. I'm trying to remember the fights, but yeah. So he was in with Oscar Valdez, and he gave Oscar Valdez a run for his money up until the point of the stoppage. This
right.
was in 2019. He's also been in with Isaac Dogbe, losing a majority decision in a
Dogbe.
fight that some thought that he might have won as well.
Yeah, I just think. Yeah, it's funny how you pronounce that name. It's like Dog Bay, like Bay
Oh
of
yeah,
Dogs.
Dogbe Neho Neho.
Yeah,
That's his
I
champ.
think I don't know really how it's properly pronounced. Maybe Dog Bow or something.
Yeah, I
Probably.
think it's Dogbe. That's how I
You
think.
know, you heard that? Well, maybe. Who knows? I
I
don't
think
know really. I'm
Dogbe
not.
is how they pronounce it, but he's Ghanaian.
Yeah,
Firecracker of a fighter, though he's been in a lot of tough fights and
yeah. He was like
lost a bit of
really.
steam, but he still hangs in there.
He was sidelined by Navarrete, so
Yeah,
that's
that was tough for him right there. Those Navarrete fights.
not. He took his lunch money, Navarrete.
Yeah. So
Give me that.
Dope, he's kind of revived himself. Apparently, up until that point, he was like training. It was just him and his father and his brother, and now I know he works with the Headbangers here in DC, so
All
he
right.
runs real camps. I don't know if he
Mm,
was doing real camps prior to that,
mm.
prior to working with them. But that being said, he's been able to revive himself somewhat. But yeah, it's still going to be tough sledding there up top. He's going to be in a tough fight every time out,
Yeah,
which has been the
those
case after
guys
those
are really
injuries.
tough, of course, from Ghana. They are
Yep.
really tough and just
Yep.
good brawlers. True, like warrior kind of spirit.
Hmm.
They have. They don't quit easily. That's for sure. They don't quit easily.
Yep. You're right.
Mm.
And then, of course, we have Vianello,
Oh yeah,
uh,
big Italian
Guido Vianello. He's going to be taking
Oak.
on the veteran Jonathan Rice.
All right,
He's
the
going to test
Italian
him in
Oak.
some capacity. We'll see what Jonathan Rice is able to do with them.
Jonathan Rice. Huh. I remember that there was
He's been in
somebody
there.
named.
He's been in there. He defeated. He's been in there with some decent names at heavyweight. Some a lot of American guys at least. I know he's been there with Jerry Forrest, Coffee. There's a guy. One name I forget his first name. I know Big Fish Vega had mentioned. I got to look him up.
Polite coffee. Jaron Polite coffee. That's not the one,
But
is it?
yeah, he's
That's
been in
kind of
there.
the funniest name I've ever heard of in boxing, I think.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So no, he had to be in
Yes.
there with Jerry Forrest for some reason. I was thinking he was in there with Jerry Forrest, but he was
Forrest.
in there
This
with
is the third
Michael
time you
Coffee.
mentioned Jerry Forrest.
Yeah, he was in there with Ajagba. He lost the decision 10 rounds to Ajagba.
Jagba.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Michael
Jagba.
Coffey was undefeated when he faced him. Yeah, I remember Coffey. Yeah, he's an undefeated American heavyweight, but
Mm,
he's not, of course, now. But he beat
mm,
Coffey twice. So the first one when he stopped Coffey, it wasn't a anomaly. So he went back and beat him again. He's in with this cat Dipsy McKean, who's 22-0 out of Australia. Is an Australian heavyweight. Excuse me, not highly ranked, but maybe we'll see his name sometime down the road. He's 22-0, 14 knockouts. His name's Dempsey McKean, 6'6".
mm.
He resides in Brentwood, Essex, United Kingdom, but he's from Ipswich, Queensland, Australia. I
Right.
have to look into him more. But yeah, anyway, Jonathan Rice is going to be taking on Guido, and Guido is Guido Vianello. He is someone I know top ranked sees as a potential market there in Italy, and we'll see how he does because, as mentioned, I think in the fight night stream, I saw that fight with Kingsley. I've seen him fight at least twice, maybe 3 times, but I saw the fight. I do recall the one with Kingsley eBay where I felt that Vianello lost that fight. He was able to walk away with a draw, but he ended up where I think that he actually lost that fight. With that being said, we'll see how he does in there with Jonathan Rice, who is someone he should be able to beat if he's going to be that guy as they're touting him. And I think he was a decent amateur, so he should be able to
Mm,
defeat Jonathan Rice, who at times doesn't really turn it on as far as offense and pace. So he'll be there, I guess you can say, for the taking in some sense. So Rice will box, but certainly you can outpace him. And we'll see if Vianello is able to do that. Use this jab. He's a bigger fighter, of course, overall. So
mm.
we'll see if he's able to do so. And Big Fish Vega mentions Johnny Rice has skills. Jesse will he come in shape? He took this fight on short notice. Oh, okay, short notice. Didn't know that. So yeah, that always
Yes.
poses a question.
That's not something you want to do, but yeah.
Yeah. So
Not,
Vianello, yeah, he should
yeah.
show up and show out. This is his opportunity.
Mm. Yeah, I mean he's obviously a very big guy and at today's modern era heavyweight, but it it remains to see if he really has something to offer. I don't think he looks. I mean, his record doesn't look that impressive yet, but he
No,
hasn't
it's
had
not.
that many fights yet. But as you said, if he really struggled so hard against a guy like that, how I
Kingsley eBay.
yeah, who is also a nobody, right? I mean, not very well known.
Yeah.
So I don't think he will go so very far. No, I don't think so.
But yeah, yeah. Time will certainly tell. Time will
Yeah.
certainly tell. But yeah, that's probably it as far as any of the major stuff that's out
Hmm.
there.
That.
Otherwise, as far as major news,
Yeah, as I mentioned, it seems like that Macau versus Mikalian fight is off.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
yeah,
why.
yeah. We were talking about that last week. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Makabu is still holding out for that Canelo sweepstakes.
that's a mistake. He hasn't fought for like how long now? Over a year.
Yeah, I think it's hitting on that year, a little bit over a year, somewhere in that
Yeah.
ballpark at this point. Yeah,
And
Willie's been out there.
in his age, he cannot really afford to or do that. Not fight for a year or so.
Yeah, Yeah, certainly. So we'll see what see. Well, yeah, I'll have to look it up, see what's the deal with that in terms
I
of him
mean,
pulling out.
Boxrec they are just so ridiculous. They are moving up at the first place now, first spot in their rankings,
Who?
because they first had Opetaya there, when he beat Bries. But
Oh,
now
they.
suddenly, for some reason, because he hasn't fought since then, Macau, but suddenly he's at number one. What's going on here?
So who's moved to number one?
Macabu.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, he just moved to number one without fighting, huh?
Yeah, that's what they do sometimes, actually, Boxrec.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of algorithm they're using over there, but it's some crazy stuff. I was gonna
But
send something out, post something on my page. I saw in their pound for pound rankings all time. That's including active fighters as well as fighters of the past. They had Joe Gans at like number 1,000 and something.
oh man, yeah,
And the names that they had in front of him, you'd be astonished. But
I
hey,
was really so surprised because I know their ratings very well. They
yeah, I
are
don't know how
really
they come up with those right there, though.
hopeless. And when I remember once I mean, they are just obviously not objective at all. I mean, I remember once
Yeah,
they were airing this fight, from Turkey. It was in 2008,
yeah,
where it was between a Turkish fighter who is in German, actually born in Germany, but he was like promoted by the guy who actually, promoted the whole event. And he was fighting this Italian Paolo Vidos. His name is a pretty good
hmm
boxer, solid. And Vidos was just outboxing him like he won 10 rounds probably. And I remember they said after 6 rounds, with Vidos just, jabbing to this guy's face.
yeah.
It was Sinan Shamil Sam, that's his name, the Turkish guy. He died actually. So anyway, after 6, the boxer commentator says, "Well, I think Sam has been doing better. Hasn't landed a punch yet. And he says, I think he's a little ahead now, really. I was like, oh man, come on. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how they are. They're hopeless.
That's funny. But yeah, that's craziness, man. That is certainly some craziness right there. But
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I just dropped by there. I want to look at their pound for pound rankings, which is laughable. Of course, the active fighters, and yeah, it's just crazy. Too crazy to
I hope
even
they
mention.
didn't have Mayweather at number one, did they?
I think he was at number one when you look at active and non-active. Yeah, I think
You're
he's
right.
number one.
Yeah,
Then
Joe Gans.
Pacquiao like number three or something like that.
All right.
But Pacquiao said he wants to come back. But I know he just signed a deal with Rising Fight Promotions or whatever, which is the MMA group. So I think he's going to be doing exhibitions, which will be boxing exhibitions under
Hmm.
the Rising banner, which I know his last one was in Japan. And I guess that's who Floyd has been doing some exhibitions with the last couple or something of that nature, or at least when he took on the Japanese fighters.
Hmm.
So now Pacquiao's about to get in the mix. So should be interesting.
Hmm. Japan, yeah, it's always a flexible market, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, we need to tap into it. We need to tap into it
Yeah.
himself here.
And they have huge interest in boxing for a lot of fans, and yeah,
Yeah.
they love they love
Let's figure out how to
all
tap into
these.
that market.
Yeah,
Let's make the
they
next stream
love.
about weight.
Yeah, they really put on a good show too. I mean, really,
Yeah, they
you
do.
gotta
They
you
do.
gotta hand it to them. Yeah, they
And I want to
really.
see the World Boxing Super Series come back because I remember when Inouye fought over there as well. But you're right, they put on a good show. But I think the World Boxing Super Series, that was a great structured show overall. And I
Yeah.
like just everything about it. I need to see that again.
I just think that Inoue doesn't get enough credit yet. I mean, from in America, especially, I think, and in the West, because they are like, he's an Eastern fighter. We have our own fighters. We want them to be ahead, and I think that there's a lot of prejudice there, when it comes to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you get a bunch of craziness in that regard. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
it's
no, he's
insane.
not gonna be on top five pound for pound. No way. He's Japanese. They can make their own. They can put him at number one if they want. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The box rec, they have him at number 8 behind guys like Anthony Joshua, uh,
Oh man.
Triple G.
Yeah, that's
So
really
yeah,
annoys me.
no
Dillian White
respect.
was, I think, for a while. It's like I don't know, for number three or something. Oh, that was so hopeless.
No respect. I get no respect, as Rodney
Yeah.
Dangerfield used to say.
Mm,
But cool,
exactly. Yeah.
cool,
All
folks.
right.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're at hour 20 minutes. We certainly thank everyone for dropping in the mix. Of course, we said we're going to keep it short and sweet. And by our standards, I think this was fairly short and sweet.
Yeah, it was just about the right time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So shout out to everyone in attendance, of course, who dropped by, and those that will be listening. Special shout out to Fight Night Scores, Rodolfo Rivera Jr., Random Acoustic Thoughts, Big Fish Vega. I believe the boxing librarian might have dropped through for a quick second. And my mom, of course, who stepped into the mix as always. But yeah, we are going to end this thing. And hey, we'll be back in the mix next week and we'll be able to talk about some of the action that went on.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Yeah.